to order. First item will be the adoption of the agenda. Is ready?
Second.
In favor? Motion's carried. Delegations this evening. The first one is Steve Kohlmeyer with Surrey, as well as Jamie Van Struth and Al Baronis to present to us on the Marina Park revitalization plan. It's done about a 20-minute presentation. And welcome back. I know you've been working hard over the last number of months, and feel free to take the podium as you see fit, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of looking at that screen, if you guys are comfortable like that. And hello again. Most of what everybody I've seen here, we've seen several times over the last few months. It's been really a great process. What I'm going to do is go fairly quickly. A number of you saw the presentation we came into town with last month. This is very similar, but a couple of refinements have happened and a little better explanation so people can get it. And as I'm sure you're all aware, we're immediately following this, having a public open house on the process and on the results. I have a number of written slides. I'll try and go over them quickly, and I won't read them verbatim. This is the project, and tonight we're reviewing our design one more time in preparation for stage 2 submission for ICT funding, which will happen in early October. Most of what I'm about to go through you already know, but just to make sure it's all in front of everybody. Kohlmeyer Architecture and Altus Consulting, and my wife, landscape architect, Cynthia Kohlmeyer, landscape architect, and Jamie Van Struth, who's an economic consultant, are all part of our broader team who's been doing the work, and we're the four of us are all here tonight. We've been here 4 times, pretty intensive stakeholder development process, and a lot of learning that we've been able to do. So the last 2 meetings, we've been developing our design and planning approach a bit more, each time with a little more detail. So stakeholder review, which has been a review with the people, all of you and a number of other people around town that we've been working with, is a stakeholder review, which is more detailed than the people meetings with the people who are actively affected by the development and involved with things that go on there already. We received stage 1 approval from ICT in, I think, April, and ready to move on to the next submission soon. So we'll, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be back here. I think Al will be here mostly for that process and making sure it's in front of you, and it's a full economic report and design report for approval to go for ICT. And Al has been working closely with them for a very long time, as I think most of you know. And we're trying to work between election dates and make sure this is on the table at the right time to actually get approval before the new board probably will begin to be there. One of the key issues a key issue in a development like this, where we're trying to redevelop a part of town which is a bit separate from the rest of the business community, we had a concern that there may be some concern on the part of the business people on Comox Avenue about this being competition. And we were very pleased to discover that this has not been the opinion at all. It's been a really unanimous and consensus-based process where the people in the business community look at improvement on the waterfront being something that helps everybody. The park is beautiful. It's a very nice place. It is a bit underused, but it has a very wonderful view of the harbor, very active harbor. So all of you know all of that already. We want to build on it because it has limitations as well. It's difficult to find. It's difficult to get to. We've learned certainly a lot of people in Comox have difficulty climbing the hill, so even that becomes part of the story. There are limited destinations on site, so we're hoping through a number of mechanisms to increase the excuses to go and the kind of reasons to stay. And right at the moment, we think it does not live up to the potential that it's there, and that's what we're all working on, is to see if we can make that change. So in very simple language, we think we have a target for all of this, both the areas around the park and the waterfront and the harborfront. It has to be easier to get there. Right now, we know people who come to Comox and actually can't find the waterfront, so that's one level. But also just the mechanics of getting there, getting there. Fun to get there and to be there. A place that people enjoy, a place that people want to come back to. And right now, that's dog walking and occasional events, which are great experiences, but very sporadic. And of course, as part of an important part of this process, of course, is fostering economic growth. It's a key metric of the IST process, but also, I think, a key metric of the town. Social well-being has a lot to do with sustainability and happiness and goodwill and success in the community. So we're hoping that a more rich community experience is a very key part of everybody's ambitions for the site. Snapshot from our good old Google Earth of the town, which you all know very well. And through lots of discussion, we think there are two main pieces, which is very obvious when we say it. We have downtown, and we have ambitions for a zone along the waterfront, which we're talking more and more about as the village. And one of the key jobs is not just to develop this as a wonderful place, but to encourage and facilitate the tying together of the two. So that's been a major focus of our planning thinking, is how do we actually make it easier and more inviting for people to go back and forth. So we have a series of pieces that we're working on. One of them is along just outside where we are right now, along the west side of the park, to make that much more pleasant, inviting, and easy to do than it is now. The other one is starting at Comox, and we will open the buildings through the park to make that much more legible than it is now, to simplify movement a little bit in that zone. And the kind of crescendo of that process is the gazebo, which is a bit of a lost place right now, and we're hoping that we can make that a much more rewarding experience. Along the east side of the park, which is the main entry in some people's minds to the town, we are looking at developing rest areas, which a number of discussions we had, people get up halfway up the hill and they're actually tired, and some of the older citizens in the community to develop kind of transition zones and to make a more pleasant arrival at the waterfront. Because now, as you descend south, you really are in a world of parking lots. As you're a pedestrian, you're walking along, you have to live with as a kind of second-class citizens of cars. And we think that people enjoy being able to come to places when that's not always the case. One of the things we talked about quite a bit last winter was the importance of working on an east-west pedestrian route and loops for pedestrian activity around the whole harbor area. It hasn't been a focus of this process, but we think it's an important thing to keep working at. We know that we've been stymied a bit on some of the east and west routing along the waterfront, and if that can be encouraged and built upon, I think that really enriches the whole experience. Right now, those of you who walk along here know that this is a bit of a circuitous route and a bit confusing route. So we're hoping to make that more inviting, easy to use, but also develop a new walkway system which is separate from the road, which is the industrial access really for the commercial harbor. And then we get to the village, the area down here, which ties us together. We've talked, again, this is a repetition for a number of you, but the idea of walking in multiple routes we think is very important for the success of a public space. People come and they can vary their own little local explorations. We have two attractive routes, one right along the waterfront, another one joining this area to what we hope to be the new development here to the west, and developing a series of sub-routes within the area. One of the little details which we like to build on in that way, in that regard, is right at the ramp, where you start the boat ramp, the concrete stair here where the pub used to be, and we think there are little signals there about how we can get a much more pleasant and subtle urban building down on the waterfront over time. One of the issues that came up in our last presentation, which we've been actually making some adjustments to, was the question of delivery of material from the parking lots and trucks down to the boats on the dock. So we now have increased the amount of access we have in this zone and in this zone from what we had a month ago. That was probably the main thing we heard some comments about. So that's what we've done. To remind you to say to you who haven't heard this, that one of the key kind of anchoring design concepts of the site is to develop here where the washroom is, or the gazebo is, and where new buildings will be here, a main sort of small public square. This becomes the focus of the new village. So when I'm going to talk now just about what's going on down here at the end. This is the village. The gazebo is here. The main public square is here. The washroom, some small commercial we're talking about, which may be able to serve as a provisioning place and as a kind of casual information. It's not a government information center that we're hoping we can attract someone to run a business and be part of the dialogue with people as they come through the site. Improved facilities for the Warfinder. The two buildings here we've talked about again on each of our meetings, but the idea is they are two small buildings. They're about 1,100 square feet each, so not big, but big enough for 50 people sitting and 70 people standing gatherings, which is important for existing pressures from a number of active groups with whom we've spoken. And one of the arguments for two buildings is that when one person books a building, you don't kill the space. You've got more options on different groups using the space. Larger groups may be able to book all the spaces at once, both spaces at once. But you see the red line here. One of the concepts we're dealing with as well is to increase the size of the building as its presence on the space, but also to invite and facilitate the arrival of small-scale vendors. So they can come into the roof, they can plug in for with water and electricity, and kind of easily come and go and provide that the life that we're looking for on the site. We're suggesting moving the facilities for Compass to a new building right on the ramp area, so we can open up this area as a more pleasant park-like entry to the waterfront. But also this building we'll talk a little more about as becoming a very dramatic part of the site. The roof is stepped up. There's a grandstand that looks down over the ramp. There's a popular viewing site for the boat race in the summer. The boat race for all boats, if I understand. And then on the east side, a commercial building which we're hoping that can come out of private sector investment. We've spoken to Richard Hand and Fairbairn about this and how this might evolve. And does a number of things. It increases the commitments, full-time commitment to the site, which means there are more and more people that come to. It's an opportunity for private sector investment. It's a nice link in that license coming and going up to Beaumont. So we have kind of transitions and multiple events as you move from the main commercial street down to the waterfront. And there have been a number of discussions about possible different commercial activities that would be there. So this is all the pieces together with the routing, the new routes, and the village. And a couple of key issues that we've come up with. One of them is we're suggesting that the playground be moved from this spot, which is quite an isolated and almost hidden area, and bring it down to be much more integral with the village, where children playing is a great contributor to urban life, to simple civic life, and going down and watching kids play, or just playing. The parents come and they're sitting in an area that has other things going on that people are much more attractive than the kind of lost place, which is used now. The area in the center, we're suggesting a small fountain. There's a very nice fountain which we don't worry about people drowning in. There is water stops out of the ground, and it can be very popular in cities, places, but attract children and adults. A small green area here where the park actually extends a little more down to the waterfront than it is now. And up in this corner where the playground is now, we're suggesting that we consider that as the best site for a stage, whether it's a permanent stage with a folding roof, or it's a place where the stage gets set up for nautical days or for other events that will be happening. It works well in terms of where people sit when they watch events. The audience doesn't have sun in their eyes when they watch, which is a big issue in outdoor stadiums. So I'm going to go one by one and in a little more detail for each of these routes. So here we're back to the east side. As those of you know this well, as you walk down the street, if you're a pedestrian, you're pretty much told to walk on the street. And good luck as you get down to the park. So we think there's a great opportunity to create a narrow sidewalk here, keep it 25-foot wide, so a roadway here, and then pass through on the grass by the willow tree down here, so it becomes a very inviting pedestrian route instead of a bit of a challenging one. As you get down to the bottom, and those of you who have done it are probably used to it, but in fact it's a pretty wide open, uninviting procession. And then the willow tree, which is really a wonderful anchor in the park, will become a part of what you pass through as you get to the park. At the north side, you come down here, we're in here, this building right here right now. So the sidewalk will come down, a small rest area here before we make the next descent down the hill. A couple of benches. We'd like to encourage them to make this a little better. So we have a kind of small scale suggestion that the garbage, if it moves a little bit west, we actually can make this a much more pleasant route in the town. Point here, about this one. This is a very difficult spot to find. I had to look up 3 times, where do I actually go and find that? And so we're looking at signage and sort of public art activities, lighting activities that really kind of begin to tell people there's something going on. So you can say, come on down, it's a very beautiful park. We can make this a little more pleasant as well out here. But coming down to the gazebo is a very strange experience. Those of you who may have done it, you come down and there's a bench in your way as you walk down, and the path is actually rather hard to decipher as it comes down the bottom. So there's a bench right here, and it's very hard to figure out where you're supposed to go. So we think that can be made more inviting and easier to walk there. This is the bench, which seems more of a gateway and a stopping thing and an inviting thing right now. So we think we can begin to just very subtle means, to make that a much more inviting procession. So we're suggesting at a more detailed level, we can do a little more intertwining of paths here, make it a little more easy to read and to go down to the park, but also to redevelop the gazebo in a very subtle way. Right now it's 6 equal sides. And from what I've been told, very rarely is it used, so we'd like to encourage people being comfortable in using it. So we're suggesting that we have kind of casual entries at 3 sides, and the opposite 3 sides then become more static places for sitting on benches or overlooking the park. On the east side, coming down the street at the back, can go back. I want to go back, and I'll bring it back and on. Going slowly here. So the city owns this lot here, so we're suggesting that we looked at first at doing a rest area within the street. I think there's some traffic difficulties doing that, so we're suggesting that the triangle of land out of the city property and develop an area which will be at the level of the street here. So this is basically level and dropping down the stack of stairs to the sidewalk and continuing the existing sidewalk here. So this becomes a garden overlook to the street and the harbor beyond. So a place to take a deep breath before you continue up and down the hill. The other area further down, of course, is the step. And those of you who've taken those stairs will remember they're pretty steep. They go down quite a ways, and even I who like stairs, they're a bit of a challenge. So we're suggesting we rebuild those as a much more generous and inviting stair. But also, this is where the stairs are now, is to make this into an inviting landing where they go in small incremental steps. Those of you who think about steps as we do, is you can take a small number of steps. They're not very hard to do. You take a lot at once, that can be a bit tiring for people. So little areas where you can stop and rest and sit makes this into a much more attractive area. But also, we are suggesting that we develop and cut into the slope here a much softer slope for pedestrians to come down into the park. Because right now the street gets pretty steep in this zone. So we can make that a much more kind of soft slope for bicycles and for walkers. So this is a digital sketch of all these pieces in the park. This is our current sketch of the village. Pretty much the things we've already been talking about: the commercial building, parking lot, walking through the parking lot. Commercial building we'll talk a little bit more about. One of the nice things that's happening with our buildings, with the two solid buildings are here, the open roof area, which we hope to fill in over time with small commercial, becomes a very tight little, almost Coswalk kind of environment for, you're hoping those bright lights over your head and kind of very jolly in this place. Looking at the main plaza, these are the sketches of the plaza, the square, where we'll extend the wood boardwalk where it is here, down to the same level it already is, extend a little bit further so it links in with the wharf and the docking here. To create a much more kind of coherent zone with small fountains and trees, so it becomes a really kind of calm, legible environment. This is another view of the plaza. The two buildings, and you see here that they've really created a little narrow, 10-foot wide, not terribly narrow, but a 10-foot wide walkway. So you're concentrated and you hope you're finding small commerce on the two sides and bright lights and pleasant environment. So the two buildings that we're looking at now would be, the white is the interior and the areas here are roofed over. And right now we're showing how, in each case, 5 small vendors, kind of the roofs of the kind of people who typically, for nautical days or something, and we hope to have more and more of those people there, could set up, get all the electrical and water supplies for their spaces, and create a real kind of commercial village. Washroom facility and then plumbers would sit here next to the plaza. People would walk through up to the park and back to the harbor here. The plaza's over here. The working here, commerce, and facing back toward the main square. So this works better here. So what we have is washrooms, handicap washrooms, regular folks washrooms, and then a storage area which Compass in particular, but a number of other sailing groups have said that they would like to have a place to go, just hang your street clothes up and put on your ocean going clothes, and then groups that can lock the doors, and that becomes, it's not a locker, but at least benches and books. The harbor master or wharfinger could either be here or bigger, because we've been define that. And a small commercial, or 1 or 2 small commercial outlets selling ice cream or convenience goods, maybe some naval kind of facilities, but also we hope dispensing advice and about what's going on. We're on toward the ramp. We have, we're looking here, a walkway. One of the problems right now coming down this side of the park is that it kind of it peters out into nothing and you kind of go between the overgrown ivy. So we'd like to create a real path, an inviting path of the park actually continuing out to the waterfront. So that the building and the small covered walkway become an inviting destination in that path. Over here, we are proposing a covered kayak storage facility. There's some very beautiful ones that have been built in BC recently. And it's one of the things we heard many times is if people can come on their bikes or walk rather than always driving to do their kayak activities. That would be a nice thing. And this is the new facility for Compass. And the roof is a sloping roof, which is actually stepped, so it becomes a grandstand. And we would have indoor space underneath it. There was one question that came to us recently about whether there was enough space. In fact, it's about 60% more space than they have now, which is what they were saying they needed, so it's right on track. And then the sloping roof, when it gets too narrow, too low, we're not counting that as space. We can still put sails and masts and that in the area underneath. So this is the view from the water with the grandstand on the ramp, the kayak storage areas, old walkway, covered walkway, and a little bit of green by the washroom harbor master building. This is very schematic, so we hope it's going to be more jolly still. But these are where we store the Hobie cats, a covered canopy welcoming you into their services, and then the grandstand hanging out above. This is the kayak storage building, a little bit of roofed area for future storage and just a nice place to get out of the sun. And that rectangle there, of course, is where is the roof, concrete roof of the gas tank. And if you know that, it becomes a real focus for the town. And then the area, of course, coming up from the harbor, we think is very critical, although it's very pretty right now, but you get here as a visitor and you don't know where to go. So I think that what we're doing here to tell you things are happening and to direct you into the activities along the waterfront and to invite you up to Comox Avenue is a very critical part of the process. The building is actually in two parts, as I mentioned before. The small building, it's about 5,000 square feet of space, so it's not a huge commercial building. The main one building is here with a covered walkway going along. Covered walking way continues. This is the triangle, which is the high point is here, and it descends down to existing grade at the back. It's a big triangle. And one of the reasons we've done that is probably just to make things more varied and less like a wall in town. But also, this is a view from the Blackfin, I guess, actually, that the roof goes up as a green landscape, and so you begin to get a kind of soft presence in the landscape as opposed to an imposing one. The area that we're proposing for the phase one financing is pretty much what we're showing in yellow. So it's paving and buildings within this zone. So that the $1.6 million that's been estimated will cover that area. And will cover the development of the path up to the street, up to Wilford. So that's the budget that we're looking at. The basic framework we're looking at is that the additional funds to do a building here, landscape development outside of the yellow area, to redevelop the building for Compass, and to do improvements to the park, which include electrical services, water services. Little detail I hadn't mentioned, that using green parking on the side to extend the sense of park and increase the permeability of the soil. Will come out of existing ongoing operational and capital budgets from the town or from other sources, which is something that will come out over time. So that's the discussion we have. We don't know where that comes from. We don't have a business model for it. We are making a case to ICT that this happening will foster these other additional developments. And it's a very important part of the whole spin-off impact of the work we're talking about. So this is just a view that we put it up on the slide a bit, and this is an image along the waterfront. So it becomes a real, this is the village seen from the water. So it becomes a very kind of intricate, more like an English village, an English seaside village, I think is the hope. It's very open as well, because that's not the number of discussions that they're actually very open and penetrable. So we aren't creating a blockade, we're creating kind of a filter along the waterfront. So that is what we've done. And Jamie Struth is going to now give you a bit of background on the analysis he's in the middle of.
Maybe I could just stop you there for a second. We've already gone a half hour here, so I know Jamie can present. We will have another delegation, but at this maybe an opportune time for members of council if they have any questions about what you presented here. And keeping in mind, of course, this is the focus of tonight's open house. So any questions from members of council? Yes.
Thanks, Steve. It looks great. There was a concern at the last stakeholder meeting about moving the access to the marina closer to the grid, so it would be closer to the
Yes.
And I was wondering what happened with that.
I've held it in abeyance because I think it's a technical discussion to see whether it really worked. One of the concerns that came out of the dock that's here is smaller than the dock that's there. And, I think it's a real possibility. It's a real possibility. But we did, we actually did fairly subtle shifts in our design. We added parking, which is assigned to loading, which we didn't have in the last design, and increased the width of the roof here, which is a little wider than the actual work that we're walking on. And this actually shrank back a fair bit, and we, if you remember, we were quite pinched in this spot as well. So we opened that up for really ensuring trucks can back up and you can get things in. So it's also pretty much as you're doing already. So I think this one is in direct answer to that question. We don't know that the technology or all the evaluations that would be required to do it, but to add the additional wharf, main plant here, I think fits easily into the planning framework we're talking about, maybe the best answer.
I don't think it was an additional one, I think it was instead of.
Changing, yeah. We haven't gone in depth, it's there as in the background as a possibility.
Thank you.
Councillor Cox.
Yes, thank you. So the buildings, the two buildings that are close together.
Yes.
Those two, which are part building and part roof
Yes.
cover. Would you be able to see through?
Yes. Yes.
The part that's just
Yes.
roof would be
Yes.
view corridors?
Yes, yes. I actually have hidden, because I want to bring out later a little model will come up and take a look at it, so I'll put that up. But that's actually very clear how open it is. And so,
Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, Steve, do you envision the fountain seems to be a bit of a focal point there?
Yes.
Do you envision that as something kids would actually be able to play in, or was it be more of a visual?
I think kids play, and I know that we've been involved with a couple of these, and they're beginning to be used. In Montreal had a huge one. In Amsterdam, we were with our grandchild last year, and he had all of his life playing on the walls of the water coming up. So, and one of the big advantages for parents is they don't slip and fall. There's no pit for you to fall and drown in or anything, just water that shoots up. And so they're really very attractive for adults and children. But yes, it's not the calm little thing you're going to look at. It becomes quite active.
Thank you.
And one thing that you and I have talked about is, like, I haven't made a focus of the issue of art. We have more slides, but I think I'm going
Right.
to limit. But we are looking at I think a very important part of this whole process will be developing signaling and symbolic and enlivening elements in the whole environment.
I know you've been doing that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Alrighty, the washroom building that exists down there
Yes.
now, is that would come down as part of this?
Right now, I think it's that we would want to evaluate very closely. Right now, the area of the new building is only slightly larger than the existing one in our plan. But there are some benefits of planning by having it be a bit bigger. I think we could work within the existing building if it proves to be wiser. But the rule of thumb in building is that if you have a major renovation, it costs about the same as building a new.
Well, it's not that old building, obviously.
Yeah, I understand. So but I think it's something that would be, we're proposing it as new. The budget framework would be very similar between new and old. And so we're recommending you that it would be possible to revisit that.
Right. All right. So
I just
go ahead.
had one more quick one. The impact on trailer parking and the boat rent is not
Yes.
gonna change much, and parking
No.
is already an issue, so.
Yes.
I'm assuming we're not gonna lose any.
No,
parking?
in fact, well, there's a bit of lost parking. I don't want to overplay that. Right now, we've reduced parking on this zone here. We've kept the parking as it is. We've reduced here, which is, we think, is a nice thing to do. So it's in your discussions. We have reduced parking in this lot. Here, in principle, we have not. The parking remains as it is. With the two exceptions. One of them is, one is not exception to parking. Right now, in recent work here, there was a curb that was built, and what we have learned talking to people on the harbor front is that new curb has made it difficult. People are waiting here in their trucks to come to be ready to go on the ramp, and they can't go far enough east to be bypassed, so there's a real clog right there. So we're suggesting that the simple mechanics of actually getting rid of that brand new, nice important piece of concrete will smooth that out. The other is we believe that loss of 2 or 3 parking spaces here for garbage and getting it away from here will be a real benefit to everybody. So those are the things we're
So,
doing.
minor change.
And parking that's currently where those 2 buildings are.
Yes.
Would be lost.
Yes. I should tell you just an anecdotal experience. We did hear that, we should see it in the middle of the summer and that the parking lot's full. And I was here in the middle of the summer and it wasn't full. And so I think it would be exceptional days when it's really, really full. We were on weekend in midsummer and came down several times to see what was happening. And I think that most of it was half full.
I'm not sure how long Jamie's presentation is. Perhaps you can advise.
We'll get it.
I can do it in less than 5 minutes.
All right. Fred, the next delegations, you okay with that?
No worries.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Jamie.
I'll get you up there. And you can click on which you're running.
So basically, my job is to take the project and do an economic impact assessment that is part of the application to Island Coastal Trust and to WE. So I'm focusing very much on just the economic impact, the extra tourism activity, other business activity that's going to be happening as a result of the project. And as Steve mentioned, the $1.6 million budget is sort of the core that I'm working from. There will be a bunch of other stuff leveraged on top of that, which is a very good thing, but my calculations are just based on the 1.6, because that's actually the funding application.
Push the upper left side.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I'll just skip over some of this. Basically, the job is to estimate the future activity with the project, and I'll go through what some of those things are, compare them to what's happening right now, and then looking at the difference, essentially. So we're comparing two future states of the world, one with the project, one without, and then applying some multipliers, some of the employment estimates, GDP, tax revenue, and so on. There are 3 time frames in my estimate. One is the temporary, the short term, just the construction phase of the project. Usually much more important is the ongoing impacts. So I do a lot of these for the Island Coastal Trust. Usually we look sort of 3 to 5 years out after the project is built. It's had a little bit of time to get up to speed, some activities start to respond to the new project. So roughly 5 years out, we're doing estimates of what things will look like there. And then I'll also be commenting on the very long term. And we'll get to all of those in a couple minutes here. So the temporary impacts, construction, as I said, 1.6 million is the budget. These estimates are still preliminary, but these ones in particular won't change very much. This translates into roughly 8 person years of employment in direct construction employment of people actually working on the site. Of course, it's not going to be 8 actual people. The project, if it happens for 6 months, that'd be equivalent to 16 people working for 6 months. It's a person year basis. In reality, there are a lot more people working, some people working for a week at a time, some a month at a time, and so on. The total impact is looking at the spin-offs, so the construction activity that's purchasing supplies in the community, all of the construction workers taking their checks home, buying groceries and going to restaurants and all that sort of thing. That's what the total refers to, adding in the spin-off benefits as well. And I should clarify, these impacts are for the Comox Valley as a whole. They operate in sort of whatever the functional local economy is, so you can't really separate the town of Comox from the region as a whole. So looking 5 years out is where most of the effort will go. I'll just run through what we think the impacts will be, and I'll certainly invite comments and questions on this. So we think there'll be increased visits from marine tourists, and that'll be due to some of the extra events and festivals happening on the site, some of the extra services that will attract people to come in here. But not just an increase in the number of people. I think the people that do come will also have an opportunity to spend more money. There'll be more commercial services, some of the vendors and stuff right on the waterfront. There'll be better linkages up to the downtown. So even with the number of people, they should be spending more, so creating a bigger economic impact. Increased visits from land-based tourists. So people are going to be arriving to the site not just from the water, certainly from the land side as well. So that's also attracted by any new festivals and events. The increase in the facilities for Compass and some of the other recreational activities and so on down here. So we've got some estimates for that in a couple different areas. And the third major category is okay, so this is the one I wasn't really aware of, or certainly not to the degree. This is mainly through Compass, but they have a lot of programs where they have international students either coming to the Comox Valley for the primary purpose of doing training in sailing or other cats or other marine recreation. And they also have a number of programs both for sort of like a week-long program, people come in for a week or a couple weeks at a time. Some of the international students that are here at the college or the school district will do this along with their regular program. So we've got some estimates of the increase that can happen to these programs. And Compass has told me with the extra classroom space, that gives them more capacity to do things in the winter, to accommodate larger groups. And just the increased appearance of the site will make it easier to market as well. So there's actually quite a lot of potential benefit from the international students in the marine training program. Sorry, Steve. Go ahead. Okay, so these numbers are preliminary. I'm still working out some of the detailed assumptions that I'll have to have in my report, but looking 5 years out, the preliminary estimates, all of those categories I mentioned, roughly 20 to 30 new local jobs, roughly $2 million in new local spending. Most of this is from tourism to some degree, but there's about 5 or 6 different categories of tourists coming in. And then the ongoing impact, you can do it one more time. It's tough enough to estimate things 5 years out, let alone the longer term, 10, 15, 20 years out. But I think I will have some language in my report about the potential sort of transformation potential of this site, not just for the waterfront, but also the linkages to the downtown and becoming a true destination, and a key regional attraction. That's it. Invite questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Jane? Yes, Patty?
So what I saw with Steve's presentation as well is the yellow phase, which met the criteria for the SD funding. Did not include the Compass building. It would have to be removed in order for that phase, I'll call it that, to be completed. So my fear is that if we only get the funding to do that piece and we move Compass, and we don't have funding to do that, have we lost that critical economic piece that is living and breathing there right now?
My understanding was there's the classroom space in the other buildings.
Yeah, I think the development within the yellow zone would be done, and Compass would still stay where they are now. That the edge would not be affected. It's only when we wouldn't live without it. We wouldn't be living without Compass until you got more money. Compass would stay exactly where they are now. It was sort of the funding source or way to build their next house. Is that an answer? Yes.
It's a great answer, and just what I saw, I thought was a redevelopment of their area where they do the storage of their boats, etc. And
If it is, there was a mistake with what the old wine was.
so it's
Yeah, the idea is
all
they
for one
stay.
and one for all. We won't
Yeah.
go ahead
Yes.
without them. They
Yes,
will.
yeah, I think it's important that they stay in
Great.
business.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jamie? Thank you, Jamie.
Oh, just if I can, I just make a comment that it was a timely coincidence yesterday that the Vancouver province had a 2-page centerpiece article about the Comox Valley in their travel section. I don't know if everybody saw that here. And it really confirmed what most of us already know, we've talked about here with excitement about the valley, that it's an outdoor wonderland, and it's or as interesting as the geography here. And it's quite a coincidence that this is coming to our plate now. And I think for our town not to take that and to look into these advantages of its geography and its people, and for economic sustainability in the future would be crazy and a missed opportunity. So with community input of course, but this is exciting. And it's nice when it's confirmed by others, not just by locals, because sometimes we look in the mirror too often and think that we're all beautiful. When others tell us that, it's nice to hear. So I thought that was an amazing coincidence, and certainly the town should be looking into this.
I'll just get the CAO to comment about the process of where we go from.
The open house will be happening this evening from 7 to 9 p.m. where the public's invited to observe a lot of this material, as well as there'll be feedback forms provided so that Steve and Al and Jamie can get the opinion from the public. We'll also have the display information on our website so people can access it by that means. We'll get that information put together in a final package for council mid-October, for the council meeting to get that ready for an application to Island Coastal Economic Trust. We'll be looking for maximum funding from them in the $400,000 range. We've already allocated that within our financial plan. As well as we'll be making an application to Western Economic Diversification for additional funding as well to try and pull all this together.
So just to refresh then, 400,000 from the town, 400,000 from the Island Coastal Economic Trust, and the balance through Western Economic Diversification.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so, yeah, just a reminder to members of the public that are here, there is a session starting at 7 next door. If you do have questions, we do have an opportunity towards the end of the agenda here. I saw Mr. Bodie had his hand up. But if you could save it till then we'll let these guys go set up. And certainly you can ask questions of them over there, but you have the opportunity, if you wish, later on in the meeting to ask questions of staff or us. So with that, gentlemen, thank you, and.
Sorry, it went a little too long.
Well, I figured you would, so.
This is a quick look at what's really displaying on there.
We'll have a look at it over next door. We'll let you get set up over there, and we'll let the next delegation proceed here. All right, so we have Fred Bigelow here, Comox Valley Airport Commission. Welcome, Fred. And we're here, I know we're here not that long ago, but you're, I know, doing the circuit for updates and promotion really on the airport landing. And thank you for your presentation tonight.
Okay, thanks very much, Mayor and Council. I'm here today to ask for your help. It's a good news story, but it's a communication challenge, and I'm enlisting the support of everybody and anybody that I can to help me get out a key message. Let's see, did this one work like it did last time? How about that? There we go. If any of you suffer from insomnia, okay, you can call me on my cell phone. I'll come by your house, and I will explain this horrible process in detail, and which of every federal government department had a hand in it. A bit facetious, but it's a long and painful story. Back in fall of 2012, I reached out to the town of Comox as well as other stakeholders and said, can you give me a hand to help make sure that the federal government knows that this is both urgent and important? And indeed, you folks did that. A letter came from Comox along with others that made sure this was front and center. To try to bring it up to speed, we all know about the legal process. We know about tree owners. What I knew was that the legal process was not going to solve the problem as fast as I needed it solved. So as I was taught many years ago, don't go through them, go around them. We looked at technical solutions. Transport Canada was about to unveil, and finally they did in January of this year, new regulations, which had a huge impact on our situation. Regrettably, they said these regulations would not be in effect until, at the earliest, December 2014. I couldn't face another fall like that. Fortunately, these regulations are normally used by the military, by the Royal Canadian Air Force. They kind of adopt them as their own once transport pumps them out. In a great case of common sense and cooperation, the commander of the Air Force in Winnipeg agreed with my request to adopt them immediately. A little review took place in the spring to make sure it was all legit, but indeed that's why in June those regulations were adopted, which essentially meant our problems were gone, we're fixed, we're back in business, and that's what we saw. What are our key messages? We are once again one of the most reliable airports in the province. So great, big round of applause for everybody who worked on this. And I do really, kidding aside, 19 Wing Comox and 1 Canadian Air Division headquarters were like instrumental. That's not my problem. My problem is that over the past few years, some people's travel was severely disrupted. You don't need to be a marketing expert to think if you put 140 people in the back of a 737, you drive down to Comox, you shoot 3 approaches, and then you either drive back to Calgary and kick them off and say maybe tomorrow, or maybe you land in Vancouver and you worry about buses and ferries. Those people did not have a good travel experience. Some of you, if you haven't been affected or if you weren't affected, you probably know somebody who did. People who live here, and especially people like you who are attuned to what's going on in your community, you probably knew we were fixed. We got some great coverage by our local papers, by media, TV in June 9th, I think was the day of the release. But what about that fella who didn't catch the news that night and who was one of those ones affected? And maybe that happened in 2011 and 2012, and that's why last year he didn't even bother coming through Comox Airport in the winter. He went down to Nanaimo, he took the ferry to Vancouver, he drove to Victoria, or she did, or their family did. I'm reaching out through everyone I can, including the town of Comox, to try to get the message to those folks that were back in business. It took years to fix this problem. Over the course of time, we upset a lot of people's travel plans, and it's those folks I want to make sure they know that we're fixed, we're back to normal, we're back to where we should be. Now, this was fortuitous timing. I just went to a love-in yesterday with CEO Greg Soretsky of WestJet and the Vancouver Board of Trade, and everyone, except for there's a little baggage thing going on apparently with WestJet. But other than that, everyone loves WestJet. And I was talking to network planners, and something we've been working on for a long time is don't take it from Uncle Fred, okay? Don't take it from Fred Bigelow's got a vested interest. Take it from WestJet. Actions speak louder than words. They announced this recently that they're going to provide us an extra flight a day to Calgary starting at 6 o'clock in the morning in January, of all times of the year to start that. I could go on at length about how important that is to the traveling public, 14 new destinations, yada, yada. My point to you today is it's not just me telling you it's fixed. WestJet is putting their money on the line, thinking that we are back to where we should be. They hung with us throughout the difficult period, and they're investing in our future with these extra flights. So it's just not it's not my propaganda only. WestJet is putting their money where their mouth is. So what am I doing? I'm asking you to tell everybody you see in the slide. If there's a certain amount of activity leading up to the election, there's an opportunity to slip that out there. That's good too. But really, think about the people you know who really had a bad experience. Those are the ones I'm going after. Because some people I know, it was not a pleasant experience. And if you can get that word out through your constituents, through your friends in your professional or other dealings, that's what I'm asking for. Simple as that. And what are we doing? You're going to see us. You probably heard some stuff in the local media, be it through Michael's paper yesterday. You'll see something in the record probably fairly soon. We've got some radio spots. We've got it on our social media. I've sent letters to every travel agent in Nanaimo and northbound. And we went back to the individual passengers that we received direct complaints on, and I went back to each one of them and said, hey, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, just so you know, we got our known back. That's the ask. Social media, as I said, we're all over it, and we're shameless in our intention to press this any way we can. And of course the media and our normal paid and other support we get through TV and radio.
All right.
That's a burst transmission. Try to get you a little closer back to your schedule.
Appreciate it.
Open to any questions you might have.
Further questions?
I'll quote that because my son-in-law just got transferred down to Calgary. He lives in a small village south of Edmonton. He can't afford to live in Calgary, so he asked for a fistful of real estate cards from the Comox Valley. So I got a friend in the neighbor who's a real estate agent. I got him and I mailed him out because he can travel from here to Calgary with all the flights. Because all he does is go to Calgary and then they ship him up to Fort Nelson, Fort friggin' whatever it is up there.
Yep, exactly.
And he can do it way cheaper because Toronto and Calgary are unlivable for your average working person, and Vancouver.
Exactly. And where would you rather live regardless of what you could afford?
Exactly. Well, his mom lives in town here.
All right. Well, you got it. Thank you for your presentation, and I know that it was reported in the Campbell Blue paper as well, and they put it on their Twitter thing, and I retweet everything every time I see that. So anywhere we go, we can certainly add our voice to it. So
We appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks, all right, we'll move on with the agenda here. Minutes of meetings for approval. We have a council meeting of September 3rd.
Move. Second.
Approval then. Those in favor? Motion's carried. For receipt, we have committee of the whole meeting minutes of September 10th.
Second.
On receipt, all those in favor? Motion's carried. One recommendation coming from that is printed regarding the public opinion vote.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconder?
No.
We need a seconder first.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Swift.
I've been thinking about this since last week, and I'm wondering if we should make an amendment to that recommendation to
You can certainly move
remove.
one.
Well, I'd like to recommend that we remove the staffing component, simply because I would hate it to go back to the regional district and put us in a position of not being able to offer the vote because it won't be staffed.
Okay, so you're proposing to remove the words as well as staffing?
Yes.
That would be your amendment?
Can I just ask a question on that?
Once it's seconded.
Oh, sorry.
Second.
All right, I'll second it, and then I'll ask the
That
question.
should be
Okay, so, it said somewhere in their report, which I don't,
You probably don't have it here.
but it said that the regional district did agree to staff it. Did they not?
No, they
Did
did
you
not.
not read that?
Not here.
They weren't gonna staff.
No, oh, they weren't, okay.
All right, so that's been moved and seconded. Any further speakers to that amendment, Councillor Price?
Couldn't we deal with that if it comes up as an issue? I think it would be very valuable to have someone there because the initiative come out of the regional district, and if people have questions,
Yes.
that's where you go. And would we not have time that if this could well be passed tonight,
We have till the middle of October.
we could have an answer from the regional district, they go, no way, we can't provide the staff. Could we not bring it back to the table and decide at that point whether we want to go ahead or not?
I think the intention of that wording was to ensure that our staff who are running town election aren't being asked to deal with Q&A and the ballots and everything else. We would not be generally putting this question on our ballot. We would have a separate ballot, and therefore it would be administered separately from the elections, but at the same time. So that's the intention I understand from the staff. So anyway, yes, go ahead.
Perhaps Councillor Fletcher and myself can take this back to the regional district and express our concern and see what they can come up with either through some
Well, we need to
Q&A right there.
We need to obviously pass whatever the motion's going to be, and then it certainly will go to the regional district.
So that was my question, are you suggesting we leave it in or take it out?
Take it out.
Take it out.
Because it's a condition.
Gotcha.
Alright?
Okay.
Let's take it out, let's take it out as a condition.
You
and
guys
then-
can just deal with it.
And then we'll try and deal with it at the regional district level.
Okay, we got hands all over the place. On the amendments, Councillor Fletcher, then Price.
So I thought the understanding was, Director, Councillor Swift wanted to remove the wording
Yes?
in fear that it might not pass at the regional
Yes.
district, correct?
Well, it might not be received well.
Right. However, if we leave it in, and Councillor Grant and myself can speak to the reasonings when it's
Yes.
presented, I think then we're on a more solid path as opposed to not having it there, trying just the two of us to
Yes.
speak on behalf of council.
Yes.
I'd rather have the motion come from council that we can solidly speak to. and take it from
Councillor
there.
I think it's been said.
So the motion is to remove those words. Are you ready for that question? Yes?
Well, I'm happy with leaving it as it is, provided we have enough time to deal with it. I just don't want it to be an issue of not.
We have 2 meetings between now and October 15th, including
Still
October
time.
15th. So
There's
Yes,
so why don't I
it's
just
on the
rescind
floor,
it?
we have to vote it.
Just vote.
We can vote it
Okay.
now if you wish. Are you ready for the question?
Let's vote it down
Yeah.
now.
All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is defeated on the main motion as was presented. So, all those in favor? Motion's carried. All right, we'll forward that along. Okay, we'll see what happens. Manager report for receipt at page 13.
Move receipt?
On receipt then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Again, question on the manager report? All right, we'll move on. We have the Shaw Go Wi-Fi agreement at page 15, and the recommendation is that the town of Comox enter into the facilities attachment agreement with Shaw Cable as outlined in this agreement.
Move. Second.
Discussion?
Just one quick question. On page 17, number 8, on abandonment, it says Shaw may remove any work it abandoned. Do we need to have any stronger language than that? Is there anything that could be left that we would wish them to take away rather than
Just leave it there.
leave it open?
CEO, perhaps you can comment on that?
I understand the material that they're placing up indoors. You're talking about a unit about the size of a smoke alarm, and outdoors they're about the size of a lunchbox. So they're very small and they can be painted accordingly to blend in with any color. I do believe that this equipment all has value to Shaw, so I think they'd want to take a look at it if they abandon the service. If not, I don't see it as being that big of an onus on us or that onerous to us.
So if it's left, we wouldn't mind if it was left there, even if it was.
I don't think so.
All right, until the next technology comes along, which doesn't need it. All right, ready for the question, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, CEO, for bringing that forward. And the last last item is the minutes of the regional district board meeting of September 3rd for receipt.
Move.
Second?
Second, all those in favor? No further delegations before we get to any questions from public or media. We'll have reports from members of council, and I'll start. Since we last met, I participated in the Royal LePage Petite Fondo 75-kilometer run, which was in aid of the Comox Valley Transition Society. Approximately $6,000 was raised by 100 participants. Also met with two of the Baybrook Macmillan Society representatives, the CAO. I also attended an evening session hosted by Island Health. It's under the topic of general practitioners for me, and it's a final strategy session around providing better linkage between general practitioners in the medical profession and some of their patients, and some pilot project money that's going into the valley for that. Participated in the Tourism Vancouver Island AGM for the annual Mayor's Jeopardy contest. I made it to the finals, but lost on a question to the Mayor of Tofino, so Josie Osborne took the trophy home. And it was a lot of fun, and great lunch presentation as well following. I met with the other mayors at the Ministry of Transportation and Highways office here in Courtenay, MLA Jordan Sturdy, who is the Parliamentary Secretary for Transportation, on the Vancouver Island 10-year transportation plan. You may have heard of the consultation. We talked about many things specific to Comox as well as Courtenay and Cumberland. And of course, re-emphasized our support as three communities for replacement and hopefully realignment of the Dove Creek Bridge. And certainly Mr. Sturdy was aware of that. So he'll report towards the end of the year back to his colleagues, and we'll see what comes out of all those things we discussed among other communities. I also had the opportunity to meet with a member of Parliament from Labrador who was visiting here. Her role is as search and rescue and critic for the Arctic. So we talked a bit about the Coast Guard base here that's slated for closure next year, the search and rescue function here at the base, as well as the fixed wing search and rescue replacement program, and gave her some information generally on how the base operates here, and making sure that it remains a viable operation, of course. Along with Councillors Grant and Grant, I was participating in the Mayor's Golf Tournament. It was a great success, and funds were handed out that night. I'm sure more funds will be handed out. Some money to the Gateway Signage Project, Councillor Kengrat's been involved with. Some money to the LARCH program, which will be a 3-year commitment, a total of $30,000, and another amount to the North Island College Foundation, which is, I think, endowed about $75,000 now. And over the course of the last 6 years, probably getting close to $200,000 raised there. Last Sunday, I participated along with Councillors Swift, Price, and Fletcher in helping with registration of the Terry Fox Run. And Councillor McKinnon was there as well. He was riding his bike. And great turnout there for an event that's been going on for quite a few years. Quite intrigued, a fellow who was decked out in Saskatchewan Rough Rider clothing came up and handed me a check for $200 and said he just wanted to keep supporting. He'd supported it every year, and he just moved here from Saskatchewan and just sat on the bleachers and watched all the activity happen. So and that was the nature of the event that day. Battle of Britain annual commemoration service at the Heritage Air Park, 74th anniversary of the Battle of Britain. A great turnout there from members of the public and the military, and the Legion, of course, was there in full force. Hard to believe that 74 years ago there was quite a battle for the survival of Britain, largely won by the Air Force, including the Canadian Air Force. Later that afternoon, participated in the International Student Welcome for North Island College and School District 7 in Summits Hall. And then earlier this week, a couple meetings, sat in on the first part of the Greenbuild seminar here, hosted by the Town Planning Department. And the other people I met that morning were Steve Cowan. He's going to come to the council in October, hopefully, to talk about the new crest that they've developed for the Sea Cadets at Port Augusta here. And it's quite a nice job they've done on it. I encourage him to come. And he'll He also mentioned there's gonna be a ceremonial divisions parade at the Comox Mall for the Sea Cadets on November the 4th. More information will have to follow. And lastly, a meeting, as I know many of you have met with Mary Ruth Harris, the new BIA coordinator, and just updating us on her activities and things to come in the future. So with that, we'll turn it over to Councillor Tonga.
Thank you. I too attended, as you mentioned, the Mayor's Golf Tournament last Friday. Didn't win anything, but I bought lots. I too met with two members of the Mac Line Society and discussed their future plans, or hopeful future plans. Yesterday I chaired a sewage commission meeting. I also chaired the Comox Valley Water Committee meeting, and I attended the CBRD board meeting. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor King?
Yes, on Thursday I attended a Community Justice Center board meeting, and it was announced at our meeting that the guest speaker for next year's Iona Campanella Lecture Series here in the Comox Valley is going to be the Chief of the Supreme Court of Canada, Chief Justice Beverly McLaughlin, which is quite a coup for that, and wanted to let council know that. I too met with members of the Mac Line Society last week. On Saturday, I attended the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board meeting in Nanaimo. On Sunday, I did the Terry Fox Run with a number of council and the mayor. And I also rolled a week before in the Comox Valley Transition Society bike ride. And I will be representing council at the Maple Lake Committee, thanks to your nomination of me on Friday in Cumberland. And look forward to reporting at the next opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Price?
Yes, I've had a AVICC executive teleconference call, and one of our projects that's going to fruition is the reduction in natural gas rates on the island to reflect postage stamp rate. It will be phased in over 4 years, starting next January, and will amount to 25%. I also was on a teleconference as part of the BC Ferries joint UBCM AVICC committee, and I think people have read the report in the paper. We have a very strong case of keeping ferry rates affordable, and there will be the UBCM on Tuesday afternoon to debate the report. I attended the Social Planning Council meeting, the Cycling Task Force, and I will be bringing a task force report to council later with regard to the future of the task force. It has a sunset clause of the 1st of October of this year, and the task force is recommending to move to an integrated transportation committee with the name Go Smart Comox Valley, which is inclusive of all forms of transportation. I met with Mary Lou Harris of the BIA, and I went to the Bamboo Inn fundraiser on behalf of the food bank. I helped with the Terry Fox Run, and I went to the RCMP salmon barbecue for the children.
Great, thank you. Councillor Swift?
Okay. Since we last met, I attended the regular Philburg board meeting, and I was part of the registration for the Terry Fox Run. I also met with Mary Ruth Harris for coffee and in conversation, and I met with two representatives of the Mac Line Heritage Society group, and yesterday I attended the sewer meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher?
Thank you. Since we last met, on September 4th, I attended a solid waste workshop in Nanaimo, and what this was all the associations of Vancouver Island and coastal communities. Our solid waste board spearheaded this workshop to bring us all together to discuss our solid waste issues and trials and tribulations, and a very, very interesting day to discover that someone's problem could very well be your solution. So working together, understanding each other's issues with landfill and solid waste, a very valuable day. In addition, we had Metro Vancouver come over and present on their bylaw, which they are presenting to the provincial government, simply wanting to control garbage. And you might think that you wouldn't be concerned about who took your garbage where and when, but, it's an issue to keep your eye on, that you control the garbage in your community. So, an excellent day, and, our board, should be, congratulated for making that happen. On September 10th, I attended our committee of the whole. September 13th, I too met with the BIA coordinator, Mary Ruth Harris, and we had a good conversation, not only as a counselor, but as a BIA member. I also had some insight from her. Assisted with the registration for Terry Fox Run and later participated in the event. And yesterday attended the Regional District Sewer, Water, and Committee of the Whole meetings. And certainly a note with the Water Committee is the Stage 3 restrictions that we're going into as of yesterday, primarily for hydro work, but again, a report from Hydro today noting that the driest recorded in 51 years ever recorded in the river. So the snowpack has not been there, and we all need to be wary of the water and the fish and the hydro and everyone that uses that water resource. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you. I also met with a couple of members of the Mac Lane Group, and I suggested to them that they come and speak with our staff and get a little better idea of what our process looks like. I think they have some misconceptions as to how the process goes along, and so if they haven't come to see you, they will.
Two of the representatives
We're there, okay, so you guys got some. I also went to the Mayor's Golf Tournament where I was the recipient of a $10,000 check for our Gateway Sign project, so thanks to them, and it was a good time. We didn't win, but I did get a couple of nights at the Old House Spa, so there you go. You spend the money, I got the prize. And I also went to an economic development meeting where we talked about the regional district review that went on last spring and the next steps that we take, and discussions are ongoing with Deb Oakman as to how that's all going to play out. So, and I also had a BIA meeting last week as well. So that's what I've done.
Great, thanks. I just mentioned briefly for Councillor Price's benefit as our rep to the cycling task force that the topic of chip seal did come up at the meeting with Jordan Sturdy, and in particular the work that was recently done on Anderton Bates Road, where it was done very poorly. And so I know there was other people there from the operational side that were interested to hear that. Certainly got a lot of feedback with the cycling community about that. And did mention as well, obviously the tourism potential of improving biking around Point Homes. We know that that's hopefully a long-term thing. I know we have staff working on some of the road rehabilitation in the area, the Point Homes boat launch. So we'll see where that goes.
And we did have,
yep.
we do have a rep from the Ministry of Transportation on the cycling task force.
Good.
And that issue of the chip seal was raised.
Good.
He pointed out that it's only in the first few days that it is a problem once it's set in. So we came, and he said we advertised the chip sealing, but we came up with, if he worked with us, and particularly with the Cycling Coalition, who's representing the task force, they can advertise ahead of time and say, pick your cycle route, avoid this road for the next 3 days for chip seal. So we are looking at how we can coordinate to make it more user-friendly.
Well, that was another general message that all three mayors had, was let us know what you're doing in the rural areas so that we can coordinate the work that we do as well. And actually the chip seal, yes, I agree to some extent it is the gravel, that's the problem, but if you look at some of the areas where they actually let the asphalt sort of dribble to the side of the road, it's actually now creating essentially rumble strips on the shoulder, so it's not just the gravel. But anyway, they'll look at that from an operational point of view. But yes, no doubt, lots of coordination that could happen. All right, media questions?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to clarify the recommendation for the CBRD vote.
Yes.
Just so that I got it right, that it was carried as
is.
As is.
Yes.
And then Councillor Fletcher and Grant will go to the regional district, just to clarify the staffing, is that right?
Well, what'll happen is the recommendation will be forwarded to the regional district as they requested, and undoubtedly it'll come up at a regional district board meeting in the near future. And any questions and concerns that the regional district have about that can be certainly addressed at that time, and our representatives will provide some commentary.
Right, okay.
All right, members of the public have questions? Just need a name and,
Now, Jim Henschel,
Yeah.
resident of Orchard Park Drive.
yes,
I just, with reference to your meetings with the Mac Lion Society.
with people, representatives, yes.
Yes, correct. I just wanted to point out that, contrary to reports in the local press, there have been no general consultations with the residents, and they do have some specific concerns about the
Yes.
project.
Yeah, in fact, we have been receiving all the letters on our reading file. And one of the things that I know the CAO and I talked about with the group was that very concerned. And we were given to understand that they would be hosting some form of public meeting, a tea, I think it was referenced. I don't know when, where that is, and certainly I would encourage the neighborhood to get involved in that discussion. And we did indicate that, like Councillor Ken Grant has referenced here, anytime there's a development going forward, public support is most critical, and that's part of our process. So we're awaiting at this point a staff report. It's referenced on our management plan sometime in October, November, as to the myriad of issues that are addressed or that need to be addressed, and whatever further process that council would like to undertake in this regard. And it may be that council will want to undertake its own public process. So we'll see what happens, but thank you for that comment.
And so one supplementary, if there is a tea that is being offered by the Mac Lion Society, I think the residents would very much like to have one of the members of the council attend.
Well, hopefully we'll be
If
on
that's
that.
possible, if that's possible.
I haven't heard yet where, when, and I don't know
Yeah.
what their plan is. If it's next week, most of council's away at a conference, but
If you can.
we will certainly do our best.
But if it is next week, I'll be here, so I
Okay.
will attend it.
Thank you.
Just as long as there's decaf.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right, thank you for that. Mr. Boat?
Okay, I'm here on behalf of the girls with the trailer down there at the fish and chip stand. They come with my own volition here. They never asked me to come, but they're really worried down there.
Sure.
First thing I'll say about that trailer, it's the best place in the world in town to meet people.
Yeah.
I've sat with Germans, Australians, Austrians, and everybody seems to want to sit under those umbrellas. You go to a restaurant, you're not gonna get somebody else's booth like they do in Europe. But I was wondering if there's gonna be anything that those girls can do to stay there, because there's a restaurant going down there, isn't there? What's the commercial building gonna do? Are you renting it out? Is it gonna be restaurant space? But I'd like to give them a chance to stay there, because they're really well appreciated, July and August. If you've been down there, they're busy and they turn out an excellent product. My mother was born in France and she trained cook from France, and that's really good stuff down there. So if somebody could go, one of you people could go down and talk to the girls, just 10 minutes or so, and just see what's going on with them, because, you know, they found out that I come out there and yap to you people once in a while. Tourist spending with and without project. Well, that's gonna be pretty good. There's gonna be 20, 30 local jobs, but it's gonna be mostly seasonal, isn't it? Or these things, they're looking at 24 hours, and when you're talking commercial development, are you talking, the story down on the dock right now, there's a marine service store going in there, and it's a heavy, heavy, heavy rumor. Have you heard anything on that, anybody here? No?
Nothing specific.
No?
We're in early stages, as you know. The application will be going forward. It still requires significant matching
Oh,
funds.
yeah, but I wouldn't, you know, the space she takes up is about the size of your table here. She requires a garden hose and a plug-in, the two girls, and they're nice young ladies, and I'd like to see them succeed in life. Both their husbands are gainfully employed. That's all I have to say, really.
Thank you for your
Somebody
comments.
else handle it?
Yeah, those have been noted. Thank you.
They're girls with initiative.
All right, we don't have anything further, no in-camera meeting, so motion to adjourn. As a favor? Motion's carried.
Yes, I agree.
That was a long way for a little speech.
Working down in the beer.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
That's because even a little village outside town here.
You understand?
We've got to down in the summer.